Hi, it's Campbell Such. This is Mind Bite Thursday, your weekly dose of the human edge in technology. This week, cognitive biases, and in particular, a cognitive bias known as survivorship bias, which is something that we're often challenged around assessing what makes things successful or what works. The human brain's capable of incredible things, but it's also extremely flawed at times. Cognitive biases are a term that was coined by Daniel Kahneman and Tversky in the groundbreaking studies that they did, and they've come up with a whole bunch of different cognitive biases. They're systematic ways in which the brain makes errors, and they're caused by a whole range of things, primarily around the brain looking to take shortcuts and make it easier for us to make decisions and work out what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, rather than going all the way back to basics to work it out every time. We couldn't function without them. They help us a lot, but they also work against us. So the survivorship bias. The survivorship bias is all around what are the factors of success. And what we tend to do is we tend to look at successful people or things that were successful and go, okay, what made that successful? What we tend not to do is to look at what didn't make it successful. In World War II, the US Navy was looking to work out what was the best way, what was the best thing they could do to make sure that their planes came home, in particular where they could reinforce them. They did a statistical analysis across all of the planes, and this photo here shows the planes and where they were shot up. If you saw that photo, now that you've seen it, where would you reinforce those planes to ensure they came back? Well, what the Navy did is that they decided the best place to reinforce those planes was in the places where all of the bullet holes were. And that's the obvious one. However, that is a challenge, and what happened was that there was a statistician, a really great thinking statistician, who said, hang on a minute, I think we've got this all wrong. I think we're doing this the wrong way. What we've really just done is worked out which plane, how much damage planes can have and still make it back. What we're not looking at is the planes that didn't make it back. What happened to them? And when they went back and had a look at that, what they found was the places where it would obviously, in hindsight, now that you know about that, where you'd go, is to look at where the bullet holes aren't on those planes that made it back. And the obvious ones are in the cabin or in the cockpit, which is where the pilot was sitting. Anytime a bullet goes through there, likely to hit the pilot and take him out, plane doesn't make it back. And through the two engines. If the engines get shot up, high chance the plane's not going to make it back. So a classic example of looking at the survivorship bias, at the success, at what made it back rather than what made it not make it back. So they turned that around, they reinforced where the pilot sat in the engines, and it meant that a whole lot more planes came back. But the same thing happens when we do stuff day to day. We look at successful people and we go, oh, what do they do? Oh, well, they get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they write in their journal, and they follow these people on the internet, and they read these books. What we tend not to do is then go on the other side and go and look at all the people that aren't successful or aren't making it really big and go, well, what are they doing? And then you need to compare those two and look for where are the differences. And if you find what the differences are, then you're onto something that maybe is the answer to why those people were successful and those people weren't. Then you can pick out the ones that you think might be causative and not just a correlation or just coincidental, and try those out and see whether that might help make you more successful or make whatever it is that you're trying to make succeed successful. So the key there is the survivorship bias. Analyse not just the successes but also the failures, and you can find a whole lot of lessons in the failures. After all, we learn most from our failures and not from our successes. So that's Mind Bite Thursday for this week. Campbell Such, over and out. See you next week.